Do your riverbanks in Planet Coaster 2 do also look boring and dull like this? Well, in today's tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to make them look more like this. And therefore, I'm going to explain a couple of things so it's easy for you to follow along. So, very first things first, we have to talk about the system in Planet Coaster 2 in order to get water in the first place. So you can see in the terrain tool, you can either double click on the terrain or opening it down here. We have water. We've got actually 3 different variants of water. As you can see, this is the clear water. Just gonna plop that in. It's looking very tropical. We've got the rough water, which, oops, hold on, there you go. The rough water is actually a little bit more wavy, and I'm just gonna hit play here so you can see that there's a bit more movement in the water. And last but not least, there is the natural water, as they call it, or murky water, if you will. So these are the 3 different options of water. Now, I personally do have an issue with the clear water because it always looks way too tropical, and it's kind of hard to make that one look realistic unless you are in a tropical biome. So in my case, I would always recommend to either go with the rough water. You can actually create some cool things with the rough water indeed, or you go with the natural water. In my specific case, I think I'm gonna go with the rough water just to showcase, and the reason why is it just, like, the ripples in the water help to sell the idea of water a bit more, you know, even though I don't feel like this would be a rough water area here, but, you know, sometimes it just helps to sell the idea. But this is not the first thing we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the menu, and this is a rather important step, and trust me, you will notice why. And you're going to grab yourself, it doesn't really matter which one, but I always like to use one of these simple art shapes over here, and you got to make sure that you do not have the angle snap activated, but you actually, or like the align to surface option, and then you just select one and make it perfectly 90 degrees straight. This is important, you know, when you grab it from the menu, make sure that align to surface is not stick to surface, and align to surface, or stick to surface can be fine, but align to surface shall be off. The reason for that is I don't want to have it change any of the orientation. It should be absolutely flat. Then scale it all the way up, as you can see. Keep it pink, it's fine. And then go for the actual level of water, which is this one over here. This is very important. We're going to bring this in, and we're going to click a couple of those in here. This is a little marker to where the water level will be going, and you can see it already shows you a little bit of the outline here of your area. So I'm gonna hit pause in this specific case, oops, and I'm gonna select all these pinkish things and create a group out of it for making it easier to get rid of it later. So that's what we've done, and then we can first of all get actually rid of the water. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna here click, right click, water is gone, because we want to first of all start enabling the work on our you know, groundwork, so to say, where we have the terrain. So what I want to do is I want to make this more shallow towards the sides, and also I'm going to duplicate this one over here, and I'm going to just bring this one down 1 step and another one 2 steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this one a different color. This one is going to be green, it doesn't really matter, and that one is going to be a blue. So we'll use them in a second. I'll get to that. But before we start, always important is to take some inspiration from the real world. It's rather simple. You can go to different places on either it's Google or wherever. I like to go to Unsplash, you know. It's a very cool photo platform where you can do, and then you go to Riverbank or whatever, type it in, and you get some really cool pictures of how riverbanks and so on look like. You know, you can just type it in and then look for those that click to you, but you can also go to like theme parks and then have a look if you want to make it a bit more aligned to that one, and then you look if there's a picture where you have like a lake, for example. You know, you can type it in and then have some images as reference what you want to do, because there are various ways of doing it. You can have either clean edges or you can have other natural ones, and I want to do both of it. I want to have a clean edge over here, and I want to have a rather nice looking area, natural one on the side. So therefore I'm going to go, to the nature first of all, and I'm going to use the flatten to terrain. So I'm going to see that I have a good area here. So there you have it. It's almost super flat, you know, that's what I want to have. And then I'm going to draw this around here, the line. So this is kind of the height I wanted to go for. But in order to have it nicer, I'm just going to draw all the way here to make ourselves a nice little bay in which it's gonna be getting in. Make this a little flatter here too, so that there is like a very nice subtle riverbank and where we can put some nature down. And I'm going to use the smooth tool, and I'm going to increase the intensity quite a lot. So the coaster comes down, and what you also want to see is if the coaster, and I'm not sure if the coaster is actually too flat here even, but I want to make sure that this is looking pretty nice. So let's see where the coaster comes. Is it on its way? Because I want to make it stop here so we can work with it a little bit better. So this is where the coaster comes down, just to understand where this is. And also this is our first level now done. So make sure to have this thing, but we are not going to completely get rid of it. We're just going to pull this somewhere else. I would pull this a little bit to the front so it stays on the same height. So you can see we have the upper level done, and it's important that you don't really get too much involved in that one. But what I want to do here is I want to make sure that we also get a little bit more in. Oops, that's the wrong tool. A little bit more in with the inner part over here. So that should be a lot more shallow. Just going to do this a bit more like this, and then we're going to smooth this out again. So this is the green one over here, giving us this nice little pier. And as you can see, I went a little bit down here to ensure that we have the next step also available with this one. And this one is rather important because you can see this step is becoming way too steep. So this is why I'm now going to try to find actually the height of this thing. I think this should be fine over here. Yeah, there you have it. I'm just gonna paint in a little bit inward here. So this is where we had that one, so that this makes a bit more sense. All right, so this is that, and now I'm just gonna grab the next thing and gonna pull the whole bit back here. So this is it, and very important is that you move back the pink one now, so to check and double check if you haven't destroyed any of your shaping. You haven't. Okay, so that's fine. You can now have all these things over here, push them even further, because what we got to do is we got to work this one now on in here. So that one is important for me, that this looks also pretty nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that we have a very nice transition into the rest of the lake area, so that it doesn't look out of place, you know. So what you can do is, and it does go deeper, but we also have to think a little bit about the physiology, or like the way how water flows, you know. And this is not a flowing like river of any kind. This is a lake. Okay, so on a lake you don't have this typical kind of erosion to the sides. What usually I would do, like when you have like a river, then you would need to make it deeper, or like on one side where the water would actually come against, and then you would have almost this like kind of undercut here in the water, which you don't have on lakes like this, you know. They do form like a very subtle edge over here because of this subtle waving against this side all the time. So we don't need to think too much about this. But like for rivers, I always recommend doing this a little bit differently though. There you can also, let me also show you, because that's a tutorial. For a river, you would then go and have like one area, you can push this in a little bit, that is a bit more undercut like this, you know. So this would be a nice little idea for a river area, where you have like an undercut area like this, and then when the flow goes away, this is where you can smooth then the sides out, and this way then, you know, where the river has like a bit of a smoother edge like this. This is technically how it is done on rivers, and then the water flow would go something like this. You have the flow that goes a bit more like, you know, so, and then bumps over to the other side, and this is how you can then form your river, your flow of the river. We don't have that over here, but what we do have is obviously that it does form a bit of a sandy ground as well. So we're gonna paint this where the sand and the soil and the gravel would be in. So this is more likely over here, because this is the subtle grounds we have to the sides. And then there where we don't have the subtle grounds, which is, let me just bring this one back. Oh my god, stay on the same height, because, hello, stay on the same height please. There we have it. So if we bring this one back in, you can see these are the sides where we are a bit higher. So on this side, I want to go and have a bit of a heavy soil, because this is a soil heavy side where we're going to put some rocks and stuff on top of it. And this side is where you have like gravel, and everything is a bit more subtle. And over here there's a bit more kind of soil, because that's where it is a bit higher up, and you know, the soil would be more like down here with the gravel. So that's also kind of more like how it is, because this side there is a bit more of an undercut maybe, but that side is very subtle from the water, what it has done over time to it. You can also have like a bit of sand, dirt, whatever you want to call that texture. I'm still confused why that is compact dirt. For me, it's sand, but hey, whatever. It's kind of dry dirt. Is sand dirt? I guess it is somewhat. All right, but this is that, and then you can go down. And there are a couple of techniques now to get nice looking areas. What you always can do is you can use billboards if you want to create a bit of a nice ground effect. You know, you can also use them in order to achieve some tropical look water, but we don't want this over here. We want a natural ground, and this is where the painting comes into play. So therefore we want to bring back in the water, but first things first, I'm going to paint all this area down here, and now we can also test what we did so far and if we did a good job. Okay, so now we go back to the natural water, which is what we had earlier, and then we, oops, that was one area too high. There you have it. So that already looks quite a lot better, because you can see how much more nice the side is over here and how the river comes in. I'm not entirely happy with this. Goes a little bit too much down. I think I want to have this transition over here a bit more subtle, but it gives already a nice look to the side. Okay, so we have done this. You can't obviously do anything over here other than paint. So what we got to do again is get rid of the water and make this transition even more subtle. Therefore, I'm going to use this brush over here again, and then just paint in and smooth it all out so that the whole transition feels even more natural. Here we go. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in again some more of the stuff I had over here. I don't even want to have that much like rock down here, because we are going to do something with rocks anyway, so we're going to paint this. So this is the basic work you got to do at the beginning, you know. And what you also want to do is for these undercut areas over here, also make sure there is a high contrast. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to use the dark rock, so like this, and I'm going to use the soil on top again. So there's that harsh contrast, and then I'm going to blend this in a bit more with sand and gravel. So we have like a bit of a line there with the water. I think this will be looking fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna click a bit of other coloration in here, get rid of the grass textures, because you don't have too much grass underwater anyways. Just gonna click myself in here to make it all look good, and I'm gonna click a bit more of this stuff in here so that this all looks a bit more natural. And there we go. Okay, this is all we needed to do for the beginning. You know, it's a lot quicker done if you have done this a couple of times. Oh, you can see there we have actually done a little too much, so we're just gonna hold on, not auto paint, use selected, and we're going to use this tool, bring it all down, and use that one on top of it. Bit of dirt back in. Here we go, and now we should be able to bring back the water in. So there you go. Okay, that looks a lot nicer already. So from above, you can have this look a lot better, but there is still the problem that the sides look a little bit odd. Now, this is where now the work comes in that I love to do in this game, to detail. But we're going to start with a simple one, and this is just going to start with rocks. You can either type in rocks, or you just go to the nature tab and just look for the rocks. It doesn't really matter. What I like to do is look for a couple of nice looking rocks over here. And what you want to do is you want to just select a couple, like let's say those. I always like to use these custom rocks that you can recolor, but you can also, if you find this is a good texture, which it is, you can also have them in here as well. Just use a couple of those. So it's important that you plop them down like this and then create a group again, because that is again something that people tend to forget. You could either create one group for both in one, or you can create a group each. I would go for a group each so you can easily recolor those. So I'm going to create one group for those, and I'm going to create one group for those. Okay, now you've got the two groups for the two rocks. What you do then, and this is very important, is just duplicate the piece once, it doesn't matter, and then go down to random rotation and random scale. Turn both on, and you can say minimum, maximum. You can just basically do these values to whatever you want for the random rotation, but the scale is very important. Make sure to go to the lowest and then have maybe 30%. You want to have small rocks, okay? Now you click once, and the next one is going to be already pretty small. So that's what you have, okay? You just click a couple of ones in, and then you can do the same with the other ones a couple of times until you have the sizes that you wanted to go for. So here we go. These are the smaller ones. And once you got all your stones laid down, there you have it. Get rid of the big ones, okay? So the big ones aren't the ones you need. You want to know, just have the small ones, okay? Do the same with the other group as well. Just click in a couple like this. There we have those, and just click them in too, and then just get rid of the big ones. All right, because we want to create some pebbles and stuff like that, okay? So we've got some bigger ones over here, we've got some smaller ones, and we've got some medium-sized ones. What I want to do is, first of all, select the group, and then let's see that we can find a color that matches this area nicely. I want to go for a bit like a color that is, yeah, just working in a bit more with the yellow tint of it, maybe. Oops, where did I go even? Let's have a look. How do we get this? Yeah, something like this is neat. Let's see if we can select a couple of other things here with those. Just make that a bit more aligned to this beachy area. Yeah, something like this is okay. It doesn't need to be perfectly fine, okay? So what's important now is that you, first of all, you put these things in one spot and then just make sure that you have the correct stones aligned. I want to get them rid, first of all, over here. Just put them anywhere else. So that is fine, but what is important, if you duplicate again, make sure that this time around, align to surface and stick to surface, both has to be on. And from now on, things are getting super simple. You are basically just clicking these stones in, sometimes group them a little if you want to. Just make sure that you follow a bit of the idea that you have and just, you know, click in some. Make sure that some also go to a bit of a lower area in the water. You don't need to be super precise. Just imagine where certain rocks could be. You know, just place a couple. It doesn't matter if they stick out or whatnot. Just make sure that you place a couple. Don't overdo it, okay? Just make sure that you just kind of find some spaces where you want to put them and some others where don't. And then switch over to the next one. Group some smaller ones around here. Make sure to have some pebbles on the beach. Just like click yourself in. It's like a very nice little process once you get the hang of it. It may look odd in the first place, but trust me, it's going to look really, really cool. And once you've done this, once you're finished and once you're happy with the alignment of all these pieces, there is a cool trick. Because you use the align to surface and these are all grouped, you can now select them and push them in a little. This is going to make them look even more submerged in that area, which is important because when the water flows and stuff, you know, dirt and stuff would be covered onto the rocks and pebbles. So that would look a lot more like this, okay? And so you can already tell where this is going. But next up, we obviously need to work our way with foliage. And before we do that though, we are going to use some decals. Because the beauty of decals is actually that you can use them to break with the, well, very clear flat line over here. I do like to use the moss pieces quite a lot, simply because those are the very best ones when it comes to, you know, recolorability or flexi-color, I should say. But there's some cool ones now here with the other ones from the toy box set too. There are a couple of ones you could use as well, but I'm gonna stick to mine. And again, very important is deactivate the stick to surface and align to surface both on off, and then you gotta select your tool and then bring it up to the very height of the water. In Planet Zoo, we had a align to water surface. I do hope that we get this in Planet Coaster 2 eventually as well, because that was super helpful as well. Now, what you can do is obviously you can scale that up a little if you want to, and then you can start going here on your coastline. And again, as always, I recommend, first of all, oh wait, we still have, that was my problem. We still have the random rotation and scale on. I highly recommend to turn that one off, because now we just want to make sure that everything looks a bit nicer. You can still do, obviously, use the scale option a little bit if you want to. But what I want to do really quickly is just create a building out of these two, because decals have the issue that you can't really tell where they are. You can really not tell that you have selected them. So I always like to kind of create a group, so that's making things easier from the get-go. So also it helps with making them bigger than smaller, because then you get some of these very nice open spaces in between, so you can make it really use of the decal kind of appeal of it. You know, you can also just submerge that a little bit into the water if you want to. Just play around with it. You know, I'm not going to do this too crazy right now. It just should give you a couple of ideas. I'm gonna stick them now to specifically these areas that are somewhat higher over here. So there you have it. And then there's another little cool trick you can do, but I'll do this afterwards. So first of all, just using those, and you can now kind of go for the color you want to. Just make them a little bit darker if needed, and then also here just maybe go a bit more into the brownish vibe. I don't know, like this. And then also let's just keep them. Oh, I think. Oh, wait, hold on. Is this like? Why is this like all of these? Hold on. Okay, I did create a different group here. That's been my mistake. But you can also just like try to figure out what kind of color you want to go for the best. I think this is kind of okay over here, and then mix in some greens as well. There you have that. A bit of green in between is very helpful to sell the idea of having some algae in or so. Just like this is very nice indeed. And then there's one cool plant I wanna show you. That is the periwinkle. I always love this thing because the flowerless, or you can actually use the flower one as well. Just gonna drop both in so you have an idea how they look. So you got those two. If you use the flower one, you can actually use another tint of green as well. This gives the whole thing a bit more dynamic. Scale them smaller, and then you can also tack them here to the side and just kind of create a bit more depth with it if you want to. So this is something I really like to use. And then you can also use align to surface by pressing V on your keyboard to just make sure it looks like as if this is like part of it, you know. So there you have that, a little bit more overgrown on the side. I think this looks already a lot better. That last one didn't look good. So this one is here, and then you can do the same over here, just making sure to align this on the ground again. And then if this doesn't click with you, just deactivate these two, and then you can just easily click them in as you go, and then align to surface again if you want to, and just bring it all the way down to make it look nice like this. Okay, so this is how you get a lot of nature in. Also, these things should always be as much the ground as possible, so you can, as if you have some, you know, stuff growing to the ground. There you go. And you can also do this here in the front and then sink them all in so they just barely stick out a little, so you get some greens in there as well. These higher areas should not have those, you know, just to give them a bit of the open spacious idea. And the last thing I want to do is, again, back to the decals. Here we go. I did press caps lock eventually, but that doesn't matter. Again, you can also use the, you can use again the moss decal if you want to. The problem with those is that, like, well, actually it's not a problem, but I wish to use the grunge one, but the grunge one has the issue that you can't really get the nice color of the sand. So this one works, but you can't get rid of the white outlines. So this is a bit of an issue. You can use this as foam in the water. I'll get to that in a minute. But I would recommend to go again with the wonderful piece moss decal. This time around, it's very important that you actually have the align to surface activated, and then also make sure to make it as big as possible. Sink it all the way in here. And what you want to do now is you want to then try to kind of match the color of your beach area while not being exactly the same. Go a tad bit darker and less saturated, somewhat like this. This gives the whole idea of it being wet, and this is exactly what we want to create. We want to create the illusion of this being a little bit of the wet area from the water. So here we go, you know, I'm just gonna put that in too. And then we can also copy that over here. Again, you have to be a bit more careful with the align to surface. Sometimes it just doesn't work as you wish. So here that is that, and then sunken in a little. Yeah, works a bit better like this. Okay, so this is kind of cool. Sometimes you get this flicker, as you can see over here. This is then just pop it up and down one more time. So here you go, you got that one. And you could then, if you fancy doing so, want to be a bit more creative, you can just do it one more time and then brighten that up a little bit more, and try to match more of the color that you have. So here goes that, and then just sink that in. If that is something you like to do, you can always just try to, you know, get this transition even more nice looking. And then if this is not looking good enough for you yet, you can still go in and search for some branches and then, you know, lay them down here, just to give the idea of a bit more nature. There's one branch, and then there's another one lying in here, you know. You could also put some dead trees in if you wanted to. There's another little nice branch lying down, and then I've got this one also is pretty cool. This one is nice. You can make that a little bit smaller, and then just put that here somewhere to the pebbles, you know. Have that one there, and then just a very small other one, maybe just like so, you know, as if it's stuck to that one. There you have that. Okay, so this looks already pretty damn cool, doesn't it? It's really, really nice looking, a lot more nice looking, a lot more kind of giving the idea of a shallow area. But what I don't like is this area here to the right hand side and the left hand side. This is where the rocks again come into play, where we are going to use more specifically these rocks again that you can recolor, and again try to not use the align to surface at this point, and also not stick to surface. We can use both like this, and in terms of size, you can also size this a little bit up again if you wanted to. And then we're going to use this thing and again create a group as soon as you can. Just place 2 down, and then you have the option to create a group, because this will always help you to much more simply build what you want to do. So you can you know, choose these 2, and then what I like to do is just like sync them on top of each other very much like this. Just create these very fine lines of rock peeking through. You know, and just make sure to really match the texture as best as you can. So that looks really cool over here. That's a really nice area. That's cool. And then you can also use that on the other side if you want to. Sometimes you gotta have to just make sure that you match these things a bit more nicely. So over here, I want to just get in with a bit of a different texture. There you have that. And you know, sometimes it also makes sense to just make it by hand and just go with one. You can obviously also change the piece. I like this one because it has that cool side texture, but there are also some other ones that you can use very nicely. I think this one is also always a good choice when you're in like more flat areas like here. It creates that kind of cool ripple effect when rocks like peek through here like this. You can see that is kind of cool looking. And then on the other hand side, you just need to kind of merge that in by just trying to find a good way of just adjusting that. Okay, this one is not really nice looking. I want to have that one as a transitional piece. Just make that a bit bigger. And then, wow, what the heck? Just come over here. Come over here. There you have that. And then bring that in. So that's that. Very subtle, very easy. You know, you could make that a lot more nice looking if you want to, but I just, for the showcase reason, I'm gonna go with this. And now it's all about finding the right color that matches it. I like to go for the browns here that just kind of match a bit more of the ground texture. You can then obviously also try to match this even more perfectly if you wanted to. Yeah, I think this is a good color. I think it's a good color. You can always do better, but this is a good color. And then over here, I'd like to match the color as well with the blending it in, and then get some rock down here. So that looks kind of cool. Just blend this in even so much more. Oh, that one actually looks pretty cool. That one blends in very nicely here. So also intensity is at 100. Why do I even do this? So let's use some lesser intensity. So here you go. That's pretty cool. And now the rest I would always do. I like this piece. Normally I use some other stuff for that, but Bracken is another very nice piece that you can use. Again, here I would use the random scale, and 50% is the smallest. Just type in 50 to 70, I guess. And then you can use that one as like a nice little area here. And just can, you know, put these in. They have like a very bad LOD, unfortunately, so I recommend just trying to make that. Okay, sometimes they seem to be too small, so let's just say 80 to 100, I guess, is maybe better. Anyways, I would always recommend using at least the random scale, because that helps you giving the idea. And you can see I'm not using any of the brushes right now. I'll get to that in a second, because the brushes can also help you quite a bit with the water areas, but they are pretty costly and they can't really do much of this so specific and so fine. But you can use the brush for like lower greens in the ground if you wanted to. Like these stones unfortunately don't really work as nicely as I wish to. You can also use some other bushes. If you type in bush, there are some really cool bushes. I like these ones because you can flexi color them. So this one is a pretty good piece, and you can then give it your own green color. So if I'm gonna use all these green tones over here that we've used, you can see this gives you a very cool little green effect, and these pieces don't really have that bad of a LOD, so I like to use those. And we can use this all a bit bigger. So let's do it that way. Actually, I think we can go even bigger than that. Let's go to 155 and 135. So making these things fill in the gaps a little bit more nicely. I still like the Bracken from up close, but from a further away, these things just kind of sell the idea of being in these corners a bit nicer. So here you go. You can use this to fill in the greens if you feel the need to, you know. This always helps you to kind of create a better, nice, natural look. It's all you need to know about these things. I always recommend using pieces that are flexicolor because you just gain so much more control over your area. Also, if you want to adjust things afterwards, this is going to be a huge help. So as I said, The scenery brush is really a good thing, but what you want to do is you want to keep that for the ground. So as you can see, I have timber mountain shrubs, for example, and I can just, for the showcase reasons, ooh, that's a bit big, but let's do this here. You can see these shrubs are like very nice over here. You can always use them, but to really get the fine line, and you can also put them below water if you want to. So you get this subtle effect of something in the water down there. You know, that just works if you want to use this, but you can also obviously create your own ones. I kind of created some low shrubs, but I also have, and this is the one I wanted to use, this is the low greens. I once created a low green brush, as you can see. This is just some of the periwinkle and I think, well, what's that over here? The garlic, wild garlic, for example. So this is also pretty cool for in the water. So if you want to fill in the areas, you can. Wow, that's the wrong one. Why did it change? I would love to have the other one. So this is the low greens over here, and you can then just use it to round up your area, but also to fill in the ground if you wanted to. So that's pretty cool as well. But you can see how you change the appeal of the water by just using all the different textures and techniques. So last thing I said to do is I wanted to have like a bit of the pathway clocking on over here. And what's kind of cool about this game is that we can now use the pathway in a suspended mode. So that means we can go in, we use the stamp builder, but we're going to use the stamp over here. I think this is a good one. And what I'm going to do is I'm raising it ever so slightly, and I am actually going to use, and normally I don't, but I add the foundation, curbs, and also railing. I'm going to go, yeah, this railing is fine. And I'm going to make sure that this is not too close to the coaster. So there we have it. And then this is where we build it. So very easy. I will adjust a couple of things here because, you know, the supports are in here. It's not connected. So what I'm going to do, double click this one and then just first of all bring this one in. So just over here. That's nice. And I'm going to use this area here to, oops. Oh, is that actually connected to this piece? Oh, it did connect it to the ground. That doesn't really matter too much. We can always use the delete tool like this. Just get rid of this corner. There you have it. And also, can I just get rid of this one here? Yeah, that worked fine. That just worked as I wanted it to. And now let's just grab this one and try to align this with the side here. That didn't work. Maybe I need to do it that way. There you have it. And also this one goes here. There we have the connection. That's fire. That's really good. So that's how I wanted it to be. And then you can always like try to make these areas look like as if you know, wanted them to be this way or like differently. But I, in my case, am quite happy with this little kind of terrace thing over here. But I do want to have these edges rounded. So I'm just going to do this. Looks a bit nicer. Looks a bit more organic, I guess, in this case. What I dislike is the coloration of this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, yeah, maybe the rustic path. And then I'm going to be giving it a darker tint. The railing, yeah, should be fine. Okay, so the stones is absolutely not dark enough. What about? Okay, so this is kind of cool, but it's not right where I want to be. Yeah, this is better. This is just better as it is, but still too dark. So I'm just gonna make this a bit lighter. So here goes that. Yeah, this is fine. This is just fine. And obviously now you could style this area here a bit more if you wanted to. You could just go and use concrete yourself, which is what I'm quickly going to do. Nothing crazy, but we are going to use some concrete pieces and we're going to just have them aligned here. Just very simple build, nothing crazy. I just want to make sure that this is a nice little area here. Oops, I forgot to turn off the sizing, the automatic sizing, the random sizing. This is random scale, as good as it is for some other areas. In this specific case, it's just annoying. So yeah, we are just going to follow along this coastline here, and I'm gonna tell you why this is specifically for a tutorial like this important as well. It breaks a little bit with the kind of perfect shape of the river. What I mean by that is sometimes it just kind of feels a little bit unorganic if there is only water, so like as a riverbed or something like that, or like a beach. Sometimes you're just so used to looking at a wall of a retaining wall or something like this that this really helps to sell the illusion of it being realistic. And I'm going to show you in a second how that looks, and this is, you will immediately understand what I mean by that. So I'm just going to bring this in. So here we have it. So there you go. Look, I mean, it just already creates like this nice little look over here. What we can do is put like I like the willow tree. Let's put a willow over here because the willow will allow us to hopefully just place that in. That will make things look so cool. So just like a bit like here. There you go. Oh gosh, I like this tree so much. I want to bring this up a little. So there you have it. Ah, so cool. So that one goes here, and then we can actually, this one can be sunk in a little bit more. Bring it over. Actually, we could bring that over more here. Why not? So that's here. So that also makes more sense with the support. Gives you a bit of shade in the water. That looks also pretty nice. And the last thing you can do, and I'm not sure if we find a good one. I have no idea if we have. If we go for lock, if there's a cool one. Yeah, there's this one. We can have this one in the water. Float in the water like so. You know. Just give the whole area a bit more of a nice touch. So maybe have that very subtly go out of the water. And then what you also can do, and I'm not sure, do we have dead trees? I believe we have, right? So if we go to trees, there should be a dead tree eventually, right? We do have, really though, is that the only one we have? Maybe this is, but you can have these as a root kind of tangle piece. So we can just have that to the side. Does this look good? Well, it doesn't really look nice. I thought it's gonna be nicer looking. I thought we had some dead trees in here, but we don't, right? We don't have even dead trees in the game. That's interesting. But we could obviously go with the branches as we had earlier, so we can also use them to make it look a bit nicer and organic. So that one over here can also be aligned to our piece. So here we go. Just to have a bit more of movement in, and that's what we wanted to do. Look at the difference, my friends. This is a very nice looking kind of riverbed, riverbank, however you want to call that. Also from the coastal perspective, looks so much cooler how it goes through here. Makes a lot more sense because this is all cleared out. Obviously, you can now get rid of all the helping items, and it just makes so much more sense in the greater scheme of this site. You know how much better this looks now. It's kind of incredible, to be honest. So yeah, we're gonna make this look a lot better from what we've seen earlier on to now. This looks a lot better from various perspectives. But yeah, I gotta say, this is one of my favorite techniques in the game to make the game look more realistic. To go from these boring kind of water areas to a very nice looking riverbed, kind of lakeside area that really sells the idea and looks realistic, looks nice, and just gives you the feeling of this could be like this in a theme park, you know. Also following here the line of the coaster helps, obviously, to kind of get the idea in. But yeah, I'm very happy, I'm very proud. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did enjoy this tutorial and want to see more tutorials, more stuff, more builds, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I talk to you in the next one as always, and if you want to support the channel a little bit more, you can always become a member of the channel or use the super thanks eventually. That always helps me out a lot. Thank you so much. I gotta talk to you in the next one. Have a nice one. Bye.